handwriting isn't any better than my voice. But the KR6 call to take it, K2RP.
KB7LOQ.
Okay, I got you, Skip, and I got you, Art. I'll be taking more early check-ins in just a couple more stations here. Just stand by. Okay, Mark, go ahead and take it, KR6FN, Fox Nancy. Mark, then give it to Dave, WJ6W, and WJ6W, give it back to me, NY6L. So take it away, Mark.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, this is my first check-in. I have a Swan 400 I've been working on, so I don't know how well it's heard. And that's pretty much it. So far, it's operating nicely, and just have a dipole antenna here in San Diego. W6JW to take it, KR6FM.
Okay, thank you, Mark. This is WJ6W, Dave in Tarzana, California. And good evening to everybody on the group here tonight. Sounds like we have a pretty good gathering. So, and many of us, and not including me, but many of us went to Yuma. So that was pretty interesting, and glad everyone had a good time, even though they baked in the sun. Already in February, March. How about that? So, anyway, congratulations, Bob, on the Flex. Yeah, I looked up what that was, and it looks like it's an SDR kind of small format. I'm not sure, but pretty nice radio. So you're really rewarded for your trip. Okay, I'll just, let's see, I guess I sent it back to you, Jay, and you're coming in very well. And I wanted to say hi to Gary, WA7BIP. You're about an S9 over here, and armchair copy. And Jay, you're well over that. I don't know what it is, maybe 20 over. So back to you, NY6L, WJ6W.
W6YEC.
KW1NG.
Okay, a few more stragglers in there. Okay, it's about 4 minutes to 7, so let's get this quickly here. Good evening, Skip. I got you on the list. K6LGL Skip. Please give it to Art, KB7LOQ. And Art, please give it to George, W6YEC. And George, please give it to KW1NG. And that should be it. So take it away, Skip.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Well, I wanted to make it before the night started. Good evening, everybody. Good signals tonight. Noise level, background is rather low. And, it doesn't feel too much like winter anymore. Okay, so this next one in line after me is KB7LOQ. Over to you there, Art, and continue the dialogue. K6 Little Green Light, Santa Monica, Skip.
K6 LGL, KB7LOQ. Good evening, everybody. Good to be on the net tonight. Got the message about Bob being in the hospital. Our prayers are with him tonight, and hope he gets well soon. Over there to you, George, W6YEC, KB7LOQ.
Yeah, okay, Art. Nice to hear you. Big signals here tonight. And thanks, Jay, for picking this up. And appreciate it. We just got back last night into town, so we're looking forward to the net here this evening. Back to you, Jay. NY6L, W6YEC.
Okay, welcome back there, George. And, okay, last station here, KW1NG, It's your turn, and then it's time to hand the list over to Vaughn, K6ZTA at 7 o'clock. So take it away.
Okay. Good evening, Jay and the net, KW1NG, and good evening, George. And I just turned the radio on, so I'm going to drift a little bit, but which George is in the hospital? KW1NG.
Bob, WA9JID.
Oh, so sorry to hear. Wish him well. KW1NG.
Okay. Very good. Less than 1 minute to 7. Vaughn, you on frequency K6ZTA to take the list, NY6L.
Yep, we're here.
Okie doke. I guess you got quill and parchment in hand.
Yeah, we do.
Okie doke. I'll just start to give you the list. So here we go. First up is AK6R, Bob. AK6R. Next is John. K6KOI. K6KOI. Next is Mike. W7MS. W7MS. Next we have Glenn. WB6RLC. WB6RLC. How are we doing there, Vaughn?
Doing good.
Okay, continuing. Next we have Paul. K2LMQ. That's K2LMQ. Next we have George. W8 Victor Golf. That's W8VG. Next we have is Dennis. W6 Delta Queen. W6DQ. And next we have Lisa. KF6QNG. That's KF6QNG. How are we doing there, Vaughn?
Right on.
Okay, continuing. Next we have Gary, WA7BIP. That's WA7BIP. Next we have is W7 Charlie Uniform. W7CU. I didn't get a name. After that we have Ron. K2RP. That's K2RP. Next we have is Mark. KR6FN. That's Kilo Romeo 6 Foxtrot Nancy. How are we doing there, Vaughn?
Keep it going.
Okay, few more. We have Dave. WJ6W. WJ6W. Next we have Skip. K6LGL. That's K6 Little Green Light. And a couple more here. We have Art. KB7LOQ. KB7LOQ. Then we have George. W6YEC. W6YEC. The last on the list we have is KW1NG. KW1NG. And that's the list as I have it, and you could place me wherever you wish there, Vaughn. K6ZTA, NY6L.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jay. Yeah, I've got the list. And let's see. Let me go through a couple of things here quickly. Welcome everybody to the Vintage Single Sideband Roundtable. This is
K6ZTA, Vaughn, in Woodland Hills, and I'm your host for this evening. The station I'm using is the IC 756 Pro 3, driving the SB 220. And we meet each Tuesday evening at or near 3895 with early check-ins starting at 6:30 Pacific and roundtable starting at 7. And all of us should be using equipment that was manufactured during 1999 or earlier, or home-built equipment with equivalent technology. However, let's see, I've got another page to go here. Hang on. Another page. We encourage the use of radios that were built before 1981. First-timers may, however, use modern equipment. We have a question of the evening, which tonight is as follows. What got you into this heavy boat anchor vintage equipment ham radio? And okay, and the sequence of the first sequence, I put Jay, I put you first, and then there's Bob, AK6R, and then there's John, K6KOI, and then there's Mike, W7MS, and then there's Glenn, WB6RLC. So that's the only one that's 5 long. The rest are all 4 long. Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, thank you very much there, Vaughn. K6ZTA, NY6LJ here in Hesperia in the high desert here. Oh boy, where do I begin? Well, I've been catching up on fixing old test equipment. I just finished restoring, recapping, redioding, worked on power supply on the Heathkit SB 610 monitor scope, and got the nice bright trace and replaced the capacitors and all that. And prior to that, I worked on my Tektronix 400 megahertz oscilloscope, replaced the 2 3-volt lithium batteries in there, the one that runs the clock. Next one keeps all the saved setups for the oscilloscope, so I got that done. And so I've just been catching up on fixing things. And the question of the evening, what got me into boat anchors? Well, I like the boat anchors because they're built where you could service them, you could work on them yourself, and get them going. And the biggest thrill I have is, or shall I say, my high of choice is getting a boat anchor that didn't work or didn't work well, and getting it to work as best as it could and work real good. So that's been the reason why I like to get into boat anchors, and I got plenty of them over here, and they look nice too. I like the way they look. So, all right, over to you there, Bob, to take it away. AK6R, NY6L, and congratulations on your first on your number 1 prize there.
NY6L and the group, AK6R. Very good, Jay, and thank you very much, and thank you for everybody. That was a little divine intervention as far as I can see, but it was unexpected and a nice way to end the Hamfest, that's for darn sure. First thing I've won at a Hamfest in a long time. So anyway, before I get into the rig and stuff, a lot of people ask me about the Filipino get-together in April, and I did find the information on that, and I did find the website and you can register on the website. So let me quickly go over that. It's the California, Nevada, Arizona Repeater Network. California, Nevada, Arizona Repeater Network, .net. So it's the initials, Charlie Nancy Alpha Radio Nancy .net. And it's going to be in Buena Park, and it's on April 24th through the 26th. This is the 33rd one that they've put on, and it's an absolute blast. The food is great. The entertainment's wonderful. The camaraderie is very good. I think I'm doing a talk there on something or other, not quite sure what. And but you'll certainly see some new products from lots of different people, and just have an overall good time. And if you want to go on trips, you can do that also. Anyway, I just thought I'd pass that on for those who are interested. It's Charlie Nancy Roger RadioNetwork.net, N-E-T. Very nice website. Okay, name here is Bob. We're in Fallbrook, and tonight we're running the TSA 30, and hopefully it's staying on frequency. We're using the VFO to control it. Thank you, George, for that suggestion, and it was a very good one. And we're running into a Meritron AL1500 amplifier, doing about 1,000 watts, and going into a 160-meter off-center fed dipole, about 260 feet along, and all of that is in the backyard, and a very nice quiet antenna, which also allows me to work 60 meters. And if you've never worked 60, it's a surprisingly interesting band. So there you go. Good question tonight. And I guess my first reaction to that question is, you know what? I'm a boat anchor, and I never got out of boat anchors. Hi. Been a ham since '63. I know that's not the oldest one on the group, but I started in boat anchors, and you know what? There's just a love for those that never went away. So I didn't get into it. I actually was part of it, and started with a rig that I still have in front of me, and at least a replica of it. It's not the exact rig, but it was a Night Kid R100 and a T150 transmitter, and a Gonson GSB, I think it's a 200-201 811A amplifier. And those were the ones that I used all as a teenager, and until I went to college, where I used an HW32 mobile, and also out into an antenna outside my dormitory room up in Berkeley. But I never got out of it, and so there's nothing to get out of or to get back into. And I've always loved it, and I've always loved the people associated with it. And also, I second Jay's motion. Most of the time, you can fix it yourself, and it's been a wonderful part of the hobby. Okay, that's my 2 cents. Let's turn it up north to Mike, W7MS, to take it from AK6R.
Okay, is KOI still on frequency?
I am.
Go, John.
Sorry to short you, John.
Yeah, I won't forgive you ever, K6KOI. You're now on the list. You're on the long list, Bob. Boy, you're coming in well. You sound really good with the 830. So this is John, K6KOI in Del Mar, and tonight I'm using a Heath, not Heath Kit, but Heath SS9000, and an RF Kit amplifier running about 1,000 watts PEP into a full wave loop. And that's the setup. And as far as the wonderful question of the evening, well, Bob, you stole my thunder. That's exactly what I was going to say. I got my license earlier than you, 1958, February to be exact. I can't remember the day, but I know it's February. And I spent my youth with boat anchor, what are now called boat anchors, and I perused the QST ads and the CQ magazine ads, and even back of the handbook in those days ads, dreaming about all this stuff like S-lines and what have you. And so nostalgia ruled the day, and that's why I've got the collection I have. And we shall turn it over to Mike, W7MS, K6KOI.
Well, thank you, John, K6KOI, and the highly esteemed Vintage Sideband Roundtable, W7MS, Mike and Reno. Well, good stories here. And thanks for Jay for taking the earlies, and Vaughn for running the show. And Vaughn, I really appreciate you posting on the .io group the update on Bob's medical issues and recovery, and also the question of the evening. That gets me motivated to be here on 3895 on Tuesday nights. Also, I'm glad to hear Bob is on the road to recovery, and I have a suspicion, like most of us male animals, there was probably a female involved that got him motivated to actually get medical care, because he was just sounding atrocious on the air over the last couple of weeks. I'm glad he's doing the right thing. But back to the business here. This evening, running under the new rules of engagement, some probably slightly newer equipment that would be disqualified just several weeks ago, but that's some Rockwell Collins HF80 equipment. I won't get into all specific nomenclature, but it's a 7-foot tall rack full of muffin fans here. So an exciter and a receiver that runs 4-channel ISB independent sideband, and a 1,000-watt solid-state amplifier and power supply. Generally sold to the military, but also at commercial applications, and of course commercial applications for the military largely in data communications, not voice. So fortunately we're just on lower sideband, which is channel V1, but if I fired up all 4 channels, I could simulcast quite fervently here on 3895 plus or minus. And to the question of the evening, not quite as old or elderly as Bob or John, but my roots go back to the mid-60s as a child. And so the boat anchors were familiar, and they were also familiar as hand-me-downs, where elder hams would, say, have an old receiver, AM transmitter. They were more than happy. Hey, this kid will take it. So that was my introduction. Of course, lost interest as an adult because there was, and this was in this order, was work, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And that took my life over. But sometime, I think about 1987, during a busy workday in Belmont, California, cruising through, I stopped by into an antique store and picked up with a vintage broadcast radio, an RCA Radio 17, which introduced me to the original and only antique electronic supply in Tempe, Arizona, not the operation of the last 10 or 15 years. So that really got me introduced to vacuum tubes and old technology. So from there, my return to Reno, thank goodness, in the late 80s, I inaugurated AM operation. So that got me going, and sideband was hand in hand with that. So that's my story. And a side story on the Radio 17, it's not operational. I still own it. But the only reason why it doesn't operate is because at that time, years ago, our Alaskan Malamute puppy decided to chew the line cord in half. And miracle, the dog survived, and the circuit breaker was never tripped. I don't know how she pulled that off, but she managed to live into quite a elder status before she moved on to the fifth dimension. So with that, Vaughn, we also had KD6GN Carter in Golden, Oregon, attempting to check in. I relayed him into Jay, and he didn't make the list, and he still may be not making the trip to Southern California, but maybe give him some recognition here and get him on the list if he's still listening. So enough of that blither blather from Reno, Nevada. Over to Glenn, WB6RLC, W7MS.
KS6BB.
All right, Mike. Yeah, let's try that again. Take 2. W7MS, WB6RLC in the group. Good evening, everyone. Glenn here, Cathedral City, next bird over from Palm Springs, where the desert meets sand. And yes, it was good to see Bob and everybody all out at John and everybody out there at Ron, everybody out at Yuma. So had some nice eyeball QSOs out there. not much else to do. You got to just sit there and attend the store. So, it was 95. But anyway, we all survived, didn't we? So, let's see, Rick, tonight, what is it? Oh, it's a Swan 300B? Sure, 444 Mike, off-center fed dipole at 32 feet. Let's see, let's see, what got me into boat anchors? Well, actually, when I took a hiatus between the military and a few other things, so by the time I got back into it, boat anchors is what I could afford. Boat anchors are what I could afford anyway. So, that was one of the deciding factors. It was just plain old economics back in the day when I got into it. It was just what I could afford. Just had bought a house and things like that, so, bought my house on my VA, and, money was a little tight, so, started getting boat anchors. And, they grew because I like the looks of them. I've always liked vintage cars, and, you could always, particularly back in the 30s and 40s and stuff, you could always tell a car by the grill and things like that. I've always liked mid-century modern, and so I've always been kind of a design person. And, the vintage radios, the boat anchors, are just so much more interesting than just the black panels that we have now, And I'm looking at my Yaesu FTDX 5000, and I like the radio a lot, it's a real workhorse. But, it doesn't look near as nice as some of my Swans or this nice old Johnson speeder I've got down here, or some things like that. Or this RME 6900 that I just picked up. So, they've got nice looks, nice designs to them, and I just find that really cool. So, that's pretty much what keeps me going in boat anchors, is just the look and design, as opposed to just the plain old blackface stuff we have now. So anyway, I guess it goes back to you, Juan. K6ZTA WB6RLC.
Okay, Glenn, thank you. Yeah, well, those are good answers. Good answers. The easy to work on was a major plus, and be relatively inexpensive. That was a plus. Okay, so let's see the next four. Paul, K2LMQ, George, W8VG, Dennis, W6DQ, and Lisa, KF6QNG. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
KF6BB. All righty here. Let's see. Von K6ZTA and the gang, K2LMQ, Paul in Kingman, Arizona. Okay, well, this is great. The comments are great, and the stories are great, and they all tie in together. A couple of comments here first. George, W6YEC, George, thank God you're home and safe, and we want to hear about everything, but that's one less worry. I'm glad you made it, my friend. So, welcome home. Ron, congrats on the NCX5, and to Bob and Jay and Ron, thanks for taking the net tonight. Okay, now as far as being interested in boat anchors, well, I was licensed at 15 in 1955, and that came after 2 or 3 years of playing with crystal sets and building little 1 and 2 watt broadcast transmitters, you know, the stuff we all did, and gradually working into hamming. And I just love it. I love working on them. I have a room full here. Presently, my ex-YL and I are working on one Viking 1, which is now working great, and another Viking 1 and a Viking 2, which I'm waiting for some capacitors on. And I just enjoy this stuff. It's as simple as that. It's just wonderful. The people are wonderful. The camaraderie is great. And I just enjoy it very, very much. Let's see. There's an endless amount of projects here, starting with some 1932 equipment all the way on up. And I do what I can do. You know, I'm limited technically and limited a little bit physically. So my wife does my soldering and stuff. And I do what I can do, and I'm just loving it. So with that, I will toss it. I guess I toss it to Dave. Do I toss it to Dave? No. I toss it to Art. W8VG. Take her away, sir. Okay. Oh, and Ron. I'll be on. I'll be on at night on 80 meters and during the day on 40 meters. So I hope to hook up with you in the contest. W8VG, take her away, Art. K2LMQ.
Yeah, okay, Paul. K2LMQ, this is George. W8 Victor Golf out here in Tucson. Good to hear everybody, and it was great to see everybody there at Yuma. Looking forward to doing it again. I'm on my old Drakes tonight, T4XB, R4B, and driving an SB220. And let's see, I had to think about this one. I think what made me fall in love with old gear and boat anchors are two things. The first one is I started out as a shortwave listener when I was about 12. I read an article in Boys Life magazine. You guys probably, some of you remember that, from the Boy Scouts, about shortwave listening, and my uncle was a ham. He wasn't much of an Elmer, but he was a ham, and he said, I'll loan you a receiver. You got to give it back to me when you're done with it. And it was an old S40B, and I just loved that thing. Had a big old half-moon dial, and spent a lot of time listening to shortwave on it. I still love receivers with big half-moon dials. I'm sitting here looking at my RME 4350, and then I got a couple of Valiants right next to it. And I just like the looks of the stuff, I think, would be a fair assessment. And when I was young and in the service up at Fort Monmouth, I was a young engineer at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and was kind of bored. That was a new equipment place in the early 80s for sure, but was kind of bored one day and rattled my civilian boss's cage and said, give me something better to do. And he looked at me and smiled and handed me a file folder and said, sink your teeth into this. And it was some, we were working on SIG and EW spy systems for the MIs. And it was an old radar warning receiver that had been procured in the late 40s, early 50s, called the APR-9B. And we were still using them in Korea in spy shelters in the early 80s. And of course, they were getting plumb wore out, and the companies that built the stuff weren't interested in it at all. So I went up to the tech library and the nomenclature office and spent a lot of time up there, and they had a lot of good stuff on everything going back into the 20s. And spent a lot of time up there going through old data. But anyways, long story short, nobody wanted to build the stuff anymore, and To reverse engineer it was over $1 million, but all those guys that used to advertise in the back of 73 magazine, it turns out they had a lot of it that had been surplus by the Air Force and the Navy, some of it new in the box. So all the old timers said, this is a new equipment place, you can't buy surplus. And one day the boss said to me, I'm getting killed over this stuff, find a way, and there was. So we had to massage the bureaucracy and come up with some test procedures and that kind of thing. But we ended up buying it, doing a buyout on the stuff from about 3 different surplus outfits that all should be familiar to everybody. And that was great. They were all happy, but as it goes, you know, if you get a dirty job done, your reward is more dirty jobs. So anytime any request came in for something out of production, it got handed to me, and I became known affectionately by the item managers up there as the junk man. And spent a lot of time studying tube technology. I think that's where I fell in love with it. Anyways, enough of that. I still have a lot of junk here and old gear, and I just love it. And the rougher the better, and always like a story behind it too. Anyways, let's keep her moving here. I turn it up to Dennis. W6 Dairy Queen, W8 Victor Golf. Take her away, Dennis.
All righty, Mr. Junkman. That's a great story. W8VG, W6DQ. I love it. Oh, man. That's pretty good. Good old Fort Monmouth. I did a lot of work with those guys before I retired. Oh, well. Anyway, when the program offices were still there. Anywho, Dennis and Inyo Kern, we're running the KWM 380 tonight with the SM280 microphone, driving the Alpha 87A. Alpha 87's feeding a Palstar HF Auto Tuner into a Ballon to a few feet of ladder line, up to about 50 feet in the air to our 540-foot horizontal loop. Everybody sounds great tonight. Conditions are really good here, so really like that. Well, a couple of you out there have already said what is my background too. Yeah, I haven't been the old timer. I'm not the old timer that you guys are. I only got licensed in 1969, but I was playing with radios back in the early 60s and really fell in love with this stuff then, when it was already boat anchors, you know, all the old military. You know, we had all the great surplus stores here in LA, like JJ Glass. Sorry, good old JJ Glass. You guys know that place. Used to spend a lot of time there, but we had a couple in the neighborhood where I lived down in the South Bay, south of Southern California, South Bay, not the Northern California South Bay, but the Southern California South Bay. We had a few electronics surplus stores down there, and I'd spend a lot of time in those places. So I was always playing with this stuff. So I do have I don't have the first rig that I've got the replacement equipment, but I don't have the rig that I first got on the air with. But I do have the first piece of commercial equipment that I got back in the day. And, of course, I got on the air with the ARC 5s that probably originally came from JJ Glass, I would bet, because they were stacked to the ceiling there. And the receiver is that Collins 75S3, which is, I still own it. I got that in 1969 after I got my license. And wow, and it's just gone through a refurb recently, so it's in really tip-top shape now. I really love it. And as others have said, there's a lot of enjoyment working on this gear. I've always liked working on it. Of course, being a double E, I mean, this is my life, working with electronics. So it was a natural thing. But yeah, the vintage gear, I don't mind working on the modern stuff. I do a lot of surface mount stuff myself. I do, circuit board layouts and assembly. I don't have any problems yet doing that. I can still put surface mount stuff together, but It's not the same as this gear, you know. I mean, the 380 is a little bit later, but we've got lots of radios here. Those of you who have been here to the house, you haven't seen the ham shack after it was finished, so there's a lot more stuff here now. But yeah, we've got a lot of Collins gear and some from the 30s even. Now, those were boat anchors when I was a kid. I never dreamed of owning some of that stuff. That was always the quest, you know. It's like, God, this stuff was so cool. I hope that someday I can own some of that, and sure enough, I've got some of the early Collins stuff in my collection here, and I'm really proud of that. That's really some interesting stuff with a lot of history to it. And that's the thing that really is what draws me to this, is the history of radio. And many of you know I've done a presentation that I do for radio clubs on the history of the receiver development from the early days up to present. And my fascination with that history, that's really what draws me into this stuff, I think, is the fascination with the history. And one of the comments I make on my my presentation is, gee, I wish I'd been born about 50 or 60 years earlier to have been part of that big surge back in the day when all those new discoveries were being made and developed and all that. That would have been a lot of fun. But anyway, I'm happy and content to play with this stuff. So anyway, Jay, thanks for taking the early list, and Vaughn, thanks for running the roundtable tonight. And shout out to Bob, their WA9GIB, to get better soon so he can be back on the air with us. And, yeah, I'm really glad to see that he's getting that taken care of. Lisa and I were talking about that earlier. So anyway, we're glad he's on the mend. And with that, I'm going to send it over to Lisa. So KF6QNG and the Vintage Single Sideband Roundtable W6DQ.
Thank you, Dennis, and let's see. Thank you, Vaughn, for hosting the roundtable this evening, and well, of course, ditto on all of the gear that we're running, because all we do is just share the mic. Let's see. The answer to the question. Well, I think y'all know who got me into all this vintage stuff and why. Well, Dennis, and I knew he was into a lot of radio stuff. I mean, when we started, but didn't quite know quite how obsessive it was. But anyway, so I didn't really have a choice. It's kind of the, you can't beat them, join them. No, but the reason I got into this, and the reason I'm able to participate in these roundtables and nets that we have, is because I decided to upgrade my license from technician to general, because I wanted to be able to operate under my own call sign. So I appreciate Dennis, getting me started on this and introducing me to all the wonderful friends that we've met and continue to interact with on this. So I'm very thankful for that. But I wanted to operate under my own call sign. So I made up my mind to do it, and I did. So anyway, that's who got me into it and why. So back to you, Vaughn. K6DPA from KF6QNG.
Yeah, KF6QNG and the Vintage Sideband Roundtable group. Well, good answers there. I'm trying to read my notes. But I think the one that stands out the most is the Junkman. W8VG. So anyway, onward and upward. Let's do the next group. which I've got 5 names down here. I've got Gary, WA7BIP, and then I have W7 Charlie Uniform. I don't have a name. And then there's K2RP, Ron. And then there's Mark, KR6FN, KR6 Fox November. And then there's Dave, WJ6W. Okay, go ahead, Gary.
Okay, thanks, Lon. W6ZTA in the group, WA7VIP Bravo India Papa, here in Duarte, California, and we're running the different radios tonight. We're running an ICOM IC745 from the 1980s, the 1980s vintage, and a vertical antenna and barefoot, so no amplifier yet. I've got one I just got to pull the 220 underneath the house to get into the deck. So when I'm able to do that, I'll pull that line through and we'll get that some power on the air. Well, very good answers. It was really interesting tonight, and very good comments, and I'm just really enjoying it all here. So I grew up like a lot of you guys. I'm an older guy. I got my license really early when I was young. I think I was 11 years old when I got my novice, and maybe 12, or maybe it was 10 when I got the novice, 11 when I got a general. And so I've been working on radios ever since, and they've all been old, big radios. I started off with getting old wood radios that had receivers in them that had shortwave bands, and I used them to listen to hams on it, and actually operated as a receiver. The ones with the better ones, I could use them on AM and CW. The CW, I would generate the VFO by adding some regenerations on IF stage so it would oscillate, or barely oscillate. I could use it to copy CW. It was kind of fun. But I did it with all old radios, wood radios, and then I found myself, I was fixing everything. I was fixing everybody's radios, even as a young kid. And so, I just kind of got my hand license, got on the air, and, like George, 78BG, the duck man, I ended up with an S40B receiver too, and that was the first one that I had that was a built-for-him radio receiver. All the other stuff is just, what I could find to put together and make work, including R5 and, the shortwave wood radios that people have in their houses, and just fixing all the stuff for all my staff, buddies, and friends and everything. And it was just kind of like a Gilbert, young Gilbert there. It was kind of fun. And so I got out of the kind of the old radio stuff, and I kind of launched my career and got started companies and advanced along and everything. And then I finally ended up life got complex, and I was designing circuitry. I was putting 2 million transistors on a chip and designing equipment out of that. And so I was thinking, what do I want to do when I retire? Well, I kind of got rid of all the boat anchors, and one of the guys that's one of my employees came up to me and he says, "You want to go to the swap meet with me?" And I said, well, not really. I'm not that interested in it. And he says, well, you should come. I said, you'd probably like it. So I went with him. He drove me down there to the TRW swap meet, and OMG, I've never seen anything like that in my life. I didn't come from this area, and all of a sudden it was just it sort of hit me that here was the material that I wanted to find to. So I had projects all lined up through time. The way I looked at the radios was really fun. Radios that but it was simple to work on. None of this millions of transistor stuff and microprocessors that I've been working with. Here's something that I can actually go in and relax and have any satisfaction of just playing around with float stuff. And what kind of like Dennis, is the history of radio. And the one thing I liked about it is I would notice how people built these radios, put them together, and how they managed to beat the problems of the day, how you got the Q up of a coil by vacuum heating it, and how you did the spacing of the wires, and how the diameter was important, and then how you designed capacitors so that they were really a capacitor instead of something with an inductance in it. And then they went to balance stuff, and you'd have all this people doing this UHF, VHF stuff, and it was all balanced. And I looked at that and I go, man, these guys really knew their stuff. They knew how to get around the parasitic elements of designing with very low GM devices and very, low, very minimal transfer time. This is amazing. So there's the history of all that stuff. There's the life and how we developed it. And that's the work. So that was interesting to me. The problem is I got hooked on it, and all of a sudden I thought all this bidding stuff, this Bodecker stuff would be headed for the landfill, so I was rescuing it as fast as I could. And I ended up with overdoing it because I discovered that the stuff is out there and it's not extremely rare, and it is easy to find, and now it's going to hit to the landfill, I'm afraid, after we're all done with it. But that's my story on that, and very interesting comments, and like to hear some more, and hope Bob gets better. JIB, kind of worried about that when we all start going to the hospital. It's not a good time. So over to Josh, you can give us your name there. W7CU. This is WA7VIP. You can take it away.
Okay, Gary. This is W7CU, John. John in Oro Valley, Arizona, down the road from W8VG. Good evening. Sorry I didn't get my name out there clearly. I am running a Collins S-Line, 32S3 and a 75S3C to Heathkit SB220. And I'm operating a very simple and not very high elevation doublet fed with window line. And I think I got the bug when I was really, really young. My dad had been a ham, and he had an old RME 69, which was in the basement and beyond my reach. But I loved looking at it. And then later on, I built a lot of Heathkits and really enjoyed all that. So, and today I just love the history. Every radio has a history, and I just enjoy thinking back. But with that, let me pass it along to Ron. K2RP to take it. This is W7CU.
Yeah, Ron, K2RP, you still there? I guess not. Why don't we go ahead then with Mark? That's KR6 Fox November. Go ahead, Mark.
KS6VB. Yeah, hello, Vaughn. This is KR6FM. And, as I said, I just have an old Swan 400. Pleased that the VFO doesn't drift, so in pretty good shape here. So far as the vintage, I'll just talk about this. About 25 years ago, my brother-in-law, who's a ham, we were talking over the air, and he was telling me I needed more power. I was only running about 100 watts. And later on, he said, I have a Christmas present for you. In the mail came this Swan 400, 200 watts. So that's how I got it. And it's still running without any repair or anything. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, Mark. KR6FN, WJ6W here. Okay, well, the Swan is getting out, and we're copying you okay over here. And this is Dave in Tarzana, California, and we're running a Collins KWM2 and 30L1 tonight. And let's see, it's very, very good question, Vaughn, very interesting. Well, for me, the boat anchors are the reason I got into ham radio, and I haven't been a licensed ham radio operator for nearly as long as most of you. I'm just a short timer or a kid or something, I guess you'd say. But back in 1997-98, I was working in Japan, and before the trip, I threw a Sony handheld little shortwave radio in the luggage and took it with me. And it was a good thing I did, because television, there was no English over there on television, and radio, I don't remember if we even had any. Well, I had that little radio, so I could receive local radio, but I don't remember anything in English there. But certainly on shortwave, I was able to listen to the news on the BBC and VOA and all that. So it was sure a good thing I took that with me. Anyway, after completing the work there and coming home, my interest was repeaked into shortwave radio listening, and I had that little handheld radio for a long time, but lost interest in shortwave radio. So I started listening again, and eventually got around to the ham radio bands and ran across the Collins net, the Collins sideband radio net, right on this frequency. And I said, wow, since I was from Iowa and I lived fairly near Cedar Rapids, where Collins headquarters was, I knew all about Collins radios. More about some of their commercial equipment. But anyway, hearing that net, I said to myself, I need to get a license and get an S line and get on the air. So first thing I did was I learned about the TRW swap meet, and went down there and I came across a complete S1 line station, Collins, and got that. I think it cost me $350 or something. It was they were pretty cheap back then, and so I had that before I even became a ham radio operator. Then I got a license and got on this frequency with the Collins gear. So that's how I got into boat anchors and how I got into ham radio. So I guess I turn it back to you, Vaughn. K6ZTA, WJ6W.
Yeah, WJ6W, K6ZTA. All right. Well, gee, that was again another interesting cycle of experiences, and in the boat anchor world, but including John's comment on history. Yeah, true. You can't help but dig into history when you start looking through all of the catalogs of the old radios and stuff like that. So anyway, all right. Now the last group. Now let's see. Let me take a moment here. Is it N6BB? Is that who's here?
Kilo Foxtrot 6 Victor Bravo.
KF6 Victor Bravo. Okay, I thought I heard also a Baker call sign.
Jacks, Kings, and Nines is here.
JKN, my gosh. All right. There's Kevin. Okay. that down. Is that a WA6? Yeah, it is. I think it is. WA6JKN. Okay. Anyway, the next group. Let's start at the top here with the group. That's Skip, K6LGL, and then there's Art, KB7LOQ, and then there's George, K6YEC, and then there's Ken, KW1NG, and then I thought I heard KD6 Alpha, no, KD6 Golf November. Did I forget that?
Got a WB6 Lima X-ray Golf.
Yeah, WA6 Lima X-ray Golf. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like, let's see, who is that? I know that call sign. I know that call sign from the Geezer Net. Okay, and I can't recall the handle. But I guess we don't have a K6 Baker or a KD6 Alpha, a KD6 Golf November, but we've got 2 more here. 3 more. Let's see. Let me make sure I've got this straight. Okay, let's go with Skip, Art, George, and Ken. Let's get through that group, okay? K6ZTA.
Okay, very good, Ron. Thank you. K6ZTA and the Visit Sideband Roundtable. K6 Little Green Light, Skip in Santa Monica. I'm on my 902 DM and small amplifier running about 400 watts or so. Okay. Well, I have something in common with Paul, K2LMQ. We both got, I think, licensed about the same time, 1955. And I got interested in ham radio probably about 52, 53, until I decided, to take the step and get a license. But when we got started, that's all there was World War II surplus, which was available by the pound, and a couple of them were mentioned before, J.J. Glass. And there was also Columbia Electronics and the classic, Sam Surplus, on 1306 Bond Street in downtown L.A. Used to sell the stuff by the pound. So many cents or so many dollars, depending what it is. And sometimes you can get hold of brand new items, brand new SCR 274Ns and ARC 5s and other things, still in original packing if you bought it by the pound. So, but of course the military stuff was aluminum, but the commercial stuff, the Helicopters National and various others, RME and Heathkit, most of it was stamped steel and point-to-point wiring and everything, and definitely easier to work on than the very dense, 10,000s or less spacing. I'm talking 10,000th of an inch. So it was easy, but there was nothing else. Raytheon has just put on the market and is being sold a CK722 transistor. The early both one of those a 2-stage little generator detector with audio amp myself. So it goes, but that's what it was. At that time, there was nothing else. So next it goes, I guess, over to KB7LOQ Art. And good evening to George, W6YEC, recently returned from Cuba. I think things are pretty rough up there. Very, very hard. So it'll be interesting to hear some of your comments. So Art, over to you, KB7LOQ, and thanks for running the net. There's ZTA and all the others, and good night to all. K6, little green light.
Okie dokie, K6LGL, KB7LOQ. I don't know if there's something wrong with my receiver, but Skip, you were breaking up kind of when I was listening to you, and but I seem to be losing volume, so I might need to get the deoxit out here on the rig. I'm running the 930 tonight into the B&W 2500 linear. I was going to run the HT37, HT41, but for the third time in a row, the HT41's got problems. Anyhow, Fawn and Jay, thanks for taking the net tonight. I got into boat anchors. I grew up around boat anchors. My dad was a radio guy and liked antique radios, bought Helicrafters, went to a ham fest with him after he retired, and I bought a SX62, and we started listening on the weekends to AM, 10 meter AM, and I got the bug and got a bunch of equipment, and there you go. This week I got my BC610 fixed, my TR7A fixed. I thought I fixed my SX115, but I didn't, I guess, and now I'm wondering why the HT41 limits reception when I turn the high voltage on. So it only weighs 100 pounds and it's 6 feet up on a shelf, so that'll be fun. Anyway, enough whining here. Grateful for the net, and again, prayers for JIB. Hopefully he's getting better like you guys are saying. Over there to you, George, W6YEC, KB7LOQ.
Yeah, okay, Art, very good. Nice copy on everybody. W6YEC. Here in Lemon Grove, thankful to be home. Thanks for the good wishes and the prayers, and really appreciate it. Yeah, it was a great trip to Cuba, and one of the best I think we've ever had. One of the most difficult, given all the circumstances, but one of the best in terms of connectedness with pastors throughout Cuba. We actually rented a hotel in Veradero, which is a tourist area, and they were closing up all the hotels because there weren't any tourists. So they moved us around before we got there to different hotels. Finally, we locked into the one that we had, and I think we closed it up. When we were done, I think they were going to close that hotel. That gives you an idea how bad it is over there. And yeah, quite a bit of suffering, I tell you. Some of the people will not have electricity for a day or two, and they don't have gas for transportation. So they've got the public trans, and the financial conditions are a mess. So we were able to go over and help some of our Cuban friends, and so I won't go too much into it. It was really, really awesome. I did well, given my limitations physically. I'm very grateful. And one of our guys got gout in his foot. That made it tough for him, and had to use a walker. I had my cane, and we got back in good shape last night, and I didn't have much jet lag, so we were right back into work today. And what we do, and had a meeting in the morning at 8 o'clock that made that. Even got there a little early, so Anyway, enough on that. We are grateful. Thanks again for the welcome home. And, yeah, we're running the TS-830 Sugar tonight with the MC50 microphone, one of our favorites, and driving a Sugar Baker 230 amplifier for about 700 watts on the peak, full-wave loop up there 40 feet. And we love the vintage gear. And so I'll try to stay with the question. You know, everybody, we could give you our story about getting in the ham radio, but it was in the vintage, what's vintage radio now. I got my first ticket back in '59, and have just enjoyed the hobby tremendously. But what was it? Oh my goodness, probably 25, 30 years ago now, I was on a net on 75 meters. It was a missionary net. We handled a lot of traffic down into near Ensenada, and we called it the taco net. And one of the guys that was on there one day was telling me, he said, "George, I have a piece of equipment here I think you'd enjoy." And I went down there. It was an Almac A54 with the power supply, all covered up, looked real nice, carbon microphone, and anyway, he gave it to me, and that tweaked my interest, got me back to AM, and I've been doing the modern stuff in those days on sideband, but got me back into AM, found out there was an AM net, and so I, anyway, got that transmitter up and running. I modified it, so to have a high impedance input, so I could use it with a D104 mic, and then I went to the TRW swap meet. I remember taking one of my boys with me, and I found an SX99 that wasn't working. So I brought it home, fixed it, and that was my start into vintage, back into vintage. And it's grown from there. And now we've had the time to have a lot of radios over the years. In fact, Dennis, I'm going to be giving you a call if you're still listening. I think I have I've probably got a Collins coming in, and I want to talk to you about it. And it's in good working order. Anyhow, yeah, so that's how I got back into it, and we certainly like it and appreciate all the stories we've heard tonight. Yep, I like that one about the junk man. Hey, George, junk man. Now, I wrote that down so I could remember. And that was one of my favorite radios, the S40 Bravo. You know, that was really a pretty good working radio for a kid. I know a friend of mine had it, and I was jealous that he had that. I had some old Navy stuff, and I always liked the looks of that S40B with the green dial and all. And so I have one here in my collection, and then I went through the whole thing. It's a great working shortwave receiver. I'll turn it on and listen to certain broadcasts on shortwave still. I really like it. All right, that's enough for me. The time is moving on. So let's give it to my friend Ken, KW1NG. I was supposed to do that the first time, Ken. I'm sorry about that. I gave it back to Jay, but it all worked out in the end. So KW1NG, take it away, W6YEC.
Okay, George, very good. Glad you're back. Glad you made it back safely and all, and you had a successful trip. That's wonderful. And good evening to everybody on the net. KW1NG, Canon Alpine. I'm on the TS-830S, like George, and into the SB1000 linear, single 3500, out to the full wave loop using a Shure 444 mic. And so the 830 meets the new criteria. It was made somewhere in the 1980 time frame, and the SB1000 was in the 1987-ish time frame. So I guess that makes the criteria as well. Anyway, my gosh, I got into it as a kid, I guess. I was a Boy Scout, and when I finished with Boy Scouts, I went into Explorers, and I was fortunate enough to get into the Collins Rockwell Collins Explorer Post in Newport Beach. I grew up in Costa Mesa, and got exposed to that there. And it was because I had a friend whose father was an engineer there at Collins. He was a mathematician, designed all the mechanical filters for Rockwell Collins, and pretty out there, wiggy-haired, kind of mathematician. Real nice gentleman, though. And my friend, his son, and I got into the Collins Explorer Post there. And after that, I'd already had my before that, rather, I already had my ham ticket. Got my ham license in 1968 as a novice, and one of my Elmers had the S line, the Collins S line, and so that it was just always Collins. I didn't have any, of course; it was too expensive for me. But here about 10 years ago or so, I acquired my S line. So finally, I have the S line. So I think that's what got me into the vintage stuff. Besides the fact that I just grew up with it, a TS520 was a brand new radio when I got it in the mid 70s. So, and then I just, you just grew up with it with Drake and Kenwood and all that stuff. So, anyway, and my first job was on the bench at Gary Radio there in Kearney Mesa, fixing boat anchors and other kinds of equipment on the bench there. So, it's just always been part of my life. I don't think I got into it. I think it's always been there. Anyway, back to you, Vaughn. Thanks for taking the net tonight, and thanks for Jay taking the earlies. K6ZTA, back to you, KW1NG.
KW1NG, K6ZTA. All right. Well, let's see. What can we do here? We have. Let's see. I'm impressed that. The idea that they're easy to work on, that's an impressive point. They are. And whoever got them into the boat anchor business, one case it was the father. So in my case, my boat anchor days started with Bob, JIB. He got me into it. So, okay, let's see. The last, I've got three more on the list. I've got KF6 Victor Bravo, and I don't have a handle there. And then I've got WA6 JKN Kevin. And then I have Rush, KB6LXG, KB6LXG, Rush. Okay, go ahead, Victor Bravo. I think he's dropped. You think he burned out? All right, Kevin, go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This is WA6JK, and I'm a little bit under the weather here, but I got to say a couple of things here. Number one, I really enjoyed all the comments made by everyone tonight, especially George out there in Oro Valley, because, he was talking about being the junk man, and that reminded me, George, where were you when I needed you quite a number of years ago? Because we had, I won't call it junk, I'll call it a black box for better, for not giving away any trade secrets. But we had this black box. We needed some more. Let's put it that way. And it had been, about 50 years since the last time the black box was made. And so we had all the specifications, drawings, and all that kind of stuff, and we let it out to a contractor. He couldn't get it to work, so we said, okay, well, we'll let you bring in some other contractors. They brought in other contractors. That didn't help. So then they brought in academia, and that didn't help. Then they brought in one of the largest engineering companies that we have, and that didn't help either. So I'm the program manager, so I said, okay, this is not good. So what we did is we got an agency to go look for missing persons, because I asked the question, what's the possibility that the original engineers on this program, are any of them still alive? Because if they were, they'd be in their high 80s, early 90s. Lo and behold, we found 3 of them. It took a while, but we did find them. And so we gave them, I think, between $1 or $2 million each. I said, go in and teach these young engineers what they're missing, what they don't understand, because they had the specifications, they had the drawings, and all this kind of stuff. So they did. They quickly was able to solve the problem, and they got the black box working. All right, so that's the one story I wanted to share. But I asked the one engineer, I says, could you explain to me what the problem is? How come these guys didn't know? And he basically said well, I'm not going to say what he said because I'll probably get a pink slip. But basically what he was saying was 4 years of calculus today is not the same as it was back in the 30s and 40s. Okay? So there you go. All right. So I guess it's dumbed down education. All right. So we got that fixed. Now here's this real story I wanted to talk about. What got me interested? What got me interested in this particular hobby and field, actually it's a field, a lifelong field, is the junk parts. Because this is what George reminded me of. It was the junk parts that my dad had in his workshop. Coils, capacitors, transformers, and all this kind of stuff. Tubes galore. So when it came down to back in 1962, I think it was, before my dad would give us the novice license, he said, you have to build yourself a transmitter. If you successfully build yourself a transmitter, then I know you'll be able to pass the test. And in addition to that, you got to build a receiver. So we had a nice little library in the den. So go in there and start doing your research and what you need to build a transmitter or receiver. So my brother Mike and I, we worked together to do that. And of course my dad was very, very helpful because he was overlooking the work that we were doing, and when we ran into problems, he explained it to us. And he got out a piece of paper, and he started drawing circuits, and he started explaining the circuits. And that was like fantastic, because now it all started to make sense. A little bit, not much. I mean, you're just starting off, so you're not going to know everything, but simple things like Ohm's law, critical, absolutely critical. So that's what George reminded me of. It was really the junk in my dad's workshop that got me interested in this hobby. Yeah, I knew that we were transmitting and signals were going up through coax and out the antenna and stuff like that. That all came later, but in the beginning I had no idea how it worked. I was just in the very beginning learning how each of the critical components of a transmitter and a receiver made this stuff work. So that's my story. All right. I'm not sure who I'm supposed to give it to. So back to, here's my brain is shutting down because I'm not feeling well. I do apologize for not remembering your call. WA6JKN. Oh, by the way, welcome back, George. I'm glad you made it back safely and all the good work that you're doing around the world. WA6JKN.
Yeah, WA6JKN, K6ZTA, Vaughn, that is. And we just want one more on the list here. And let's see if Rush is still listening. WB6LXG, K6ZTA.
WA6J and Grove as well. WB6, name X-ray and the Gulf. And interesting stories tonight. Thanks for leading the net and hanging on this long. I'm sure there's been a lot of dropouts, but like me, I picked up the last minute because I was involved with computer stuff earlier tonight. And anyway, running your KWM2 with a B4, 312B4 at the output, and 516, well, PM2 power supply at this time. And I get kind of music someplace. Some people call it music. Anyway, and I'm on a dipole, about 30 feet up. Type of 51S1 is the backup. Got some other columns here on the shelf that some need help, some doesn't, and I get around to picking out which ones would. Anyway, I like many others have said, they've always been, always been for the old stuff, and that's me too. Back in 1961, I was transferred to Radio Chief School here in San Diego at MCRD, and we got 60 hours of electronics, basic electronics, and then they kept me as an instructor, so that 60 hours really got me interested. My dad was an electrician, so I had a basic knowledge of how to do wires work, not much beyond that. Other than grounding them. And so I went to night school for 2 years at State College. And after that, I decided, how do I know what I know? And I went down to the FCC office, took the test for general, and passed it. At that time, you had to have 2 years as a general before you could move up. And that time just never got around. When I had the time to study, I didn't have the time to take it or whatever. And, but anyway, going back to the chief operator at the radio station, Mars station, when it was starting, MCRD, forced me into cable, borrowing a heat 6 meter. Which I kind of fell in love with. I named it for my car. And then I went on later. I traded and got my own GPS for the first AM I was on. And there was a heat kit in there, someplace that was a converter entered the sideband at the time. And they were kept asking me to come into the Mars program. And while I was teaching school, and now I didn't have the equipment at home, and I wanted to get field experience before I went off to something else. So I turned them down, and then I got orders to Vietnam, and while I was there, I stopped in the Mars station also, and met some people I'd been talking to on the radio. One guy from 29 Palms. And he convinced me that this was the way to go. So when I came home, they sent me to Chief School. And Bob Rotella was after me to continue in Mars. So I succeeded and wound up being a traffic manager. And then went back to Vietnam. So at the time we're working on equipment, S-line. We had a KWM2, but didn't use that for local, so I didn't get on it much. But I mean, that was really the only equipment I knew. The GPS, it kind of came and went. I'm not sure how. Eric clicked it a long time ago. But anyway, so I went back to Vietnam as area coordinator for the Navy Mars, and I was also the chief operator at first Mars for, I don't know, 1 or 2 months, and then they moved me over to Air Wing because the shop there was rotating. and spent the rest of my tour there and acquired my dog. But I was working totally with Mars equipment and the Henry 4, 2 and 4K amplifiers. And I had a full three-element rhombic over a swamp area that we were pumping stuff out almost 24 hours a day between radio telegraph, or teletype, radio teletype, and messages home through phone patches. And we were very busy. We really racked them up, and myself and all the other stations too. And really, that was the most gratifying tour of duty I had while I was on active duty. The things we did for those kids. And I got all kinds of sea stories on that, but one of them we actually promoted or I'll say enforced a wedding where a couple got married. Had a priest or a preacher on each end to sign off, and they took their vows. So we could do all kinds of things on there. Anyway, I came back, and my last tour of duty was at MCRD in the Mars station for about 4 or 5 years, and using the top line equipment and all that, and I just didn't know there was anything else out there. And I acquired some, when they started closing out the Mars program, you can imagine the amount of equipment that came available. And I acquired a full setup. And to me it was just another day, because I've been working with it for like 7 years. And so I'm always ashamed to admit this, but I went to a swap meet down in Dallas with some friends, and I took my S-line, or my S-line, and I had a 516B5. 312B5. Yeah. 312B5. Now I've got a 312B4. Anyway, took that with me, and I traded it off for some cash, and guess I sold it. And then used that to buy a Yaesu 757, which I just loved because it was all in one box. And the first time I had to get in it for any kind of adjustment, no way. No, I can't get in that tight of an area to do work. So over the years from there, I acquired a couple of KWM2s, which I still have. And that's how I got into boat anchors. It just, the new stuff just scared the stuff out of me. And I recently purchased a Swan. I think it's Swan Signet 270. And got that about a year ago. And it's good to use it on the Swan occasionally. And then a few months ago from George, I got a IC 7300. And that thing, as long as the cover's on it, I'm okay. I can just try to figure out the button. Sometimes I have to fall for advice. But this new stuff just blows me away. So I'm hanging with my two types. And there was one guy that always had a saying that, and he put it on all of his emails: if it doesn't glow, it's not radio. And that's the one I'm going to stick with. If it doesn't have tubes, it's not radio. Anything else is just a side element to play with. So back over to you. W6CBA, is that it? W6 Lima X-Ray Golf. How many did I lose to boredom? Over.
Yeah, WB6 Lima X-Ray Golf from K6ZTA. All right, Rush, that's quite a story. All right, yeah, and unless they glow, they're not worth. Well, that's a different category. Okay, so for the evening, I think we'll call it quits. My gosh, it's been an hour and a half. And didn't expect that, but it was good, and everybody got their licks in terms of what they wanted to say, and let's see. I guess I better get ready to file to award a golden cup. I think I'll just stick with the golden cup tonight. And the first comment was from Jay, because they're easy to work on. and then for George, there was this moon dial. I like that, and the fact that he's a junk manager or a junk dealer or a junkie. Let's see, what else is there? And some comment on John made a comment about history in the working with the old radios, and Skip said they're easy to work on, and well, that's it. I'm gonna vote for. I'm voting for the junk man. That seems to be the most prevalent one. So W8VG and the roundtable this evening is turning it over to you, and you can do a final on that. W8VG K6ZTA.
Real good, Vaughn. K6ZTA, here is W8 Victor Golf. I'm afraid I'm going to be the junk man now. But thanks so much for running the net. And please pass my regards to Bob. Hope he gets better. I had a great visit with Bob about 2 years ago when I was up in the La Cañada area. Anyways, well, it was interesting duty at the time. I didn't think so, but I was bored and looking for some things to do that were better than what they had me doing, and spent a lot of time in their tech library doing research. They bought a lot of gear during the war from Hallicrafters and National, and there were a lot of tech data up there on that, and drawings and everything else. And that was fascinating. And spent, believe it or not, a lot of time going through the Army's junkyards. They're called PDO yards, looking for some of this stuff. Some of it was out there laying around. They didn't even know they had it, and we needed it. Only in the government, my friends. But spent a lot of time learning about this stuff, and kind of fell in love with it. And then the other thing, too, is in the early 80s, there were a lot of old engineers and techs, civilian guys up there getting ready to retire, who started there during the war. And they could tell, if you were a young ham and you were interested, they could just fill you with a lot of great stories about some of the things that were done there and the things they bought. And a lot of, BC-610s and SX-28s and then S-27s, S-36s, all that stuff. Anyways, one of Ted VXC's friends up in Colorado wrote an article on the APR-9B for electric radio about 2 years ago, and I had to tell him that story. He got a kick out of it. I think I'm the last guy in DOD to buy that stuff, and it was all from surplus. Anyway, 73, everybody. Back to you, Vaughn. Thanks so much for running the net. K6 ZTA W8VG.
All right, George. Yeah, thank you for sticking it out here. And, yeah, congratulations on the Gold Cup. And this is K6ZTA signing off. And thank everybody for showing up.